Order. 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 The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Annette King deserves some congratulations. As I tell you what, that speech lasted longer than the average tenure of a Labor leader these days. And my favourite was no fish. No fish was my favourite as part of the speech. Mr. Speaker, can I take this moment just to congratulate all members of the House for their election and, in some cases, re-election. For those who are here for the first time, can I wish them the best for the next 3 years. I hope that they enjoy it. I hope they enjoy the excitement of making a difference, and can I offer them the same advice that I offer my own caucus who are new. Avoid making the mistake of walking over broken glass to come to this Parliament, moaning and complaining the entire time you're here, and then when you leave doing everything you can to come back. Enjoy your time, make a difference, and make sure you look after your families. Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to lead the government of the 51st Parliament. It has, I've got to say, a certain deja vu about it. We seem to be returning where we left off, although the composition of the National Caucus is slightly different and it's slightly larger. But once again, it's full of unity and passion, determination and a commitment to continue to work for New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, we return to the 51st Parliament very much with the same partners that we had in the 49th and the 50th Parliament, with the ACT Party, and we thank them and David Seymour for the relationship I'm sure that we will have together, for the United Future and Peter Dunn, and we thank Mr Dunn for the strong working relationship. We look forward to that in the years ahead, and to the Māori Party and to newly elected leader Te Roa Flavel, we wish him and his party all the very best. Together we will work hard to provide strong and stable government. Together we'll work hard to deliver even better results when it comes to economic growth, in terms of lifting more children out of poverty, to ensuring more families move into work, to continuing to improve the quality of our critical services of health and education, and continuing to see the crime rate fall. Mr. Speaker, that is the National Caucus and the members that support it. That is not the sorry state of the Labor Party. Mr. Speaker, they started the election with a leader that, let's be blunt, none of them liked. And they ended the election with a leader that none of them can name. That's because they don't have one, Mr. Speaker. But they do have wannabe leaders. Yep, at the risk that they have some risk actually. They have the risk that they have more wannabe leaders than people who actually voted for them in 2014. Mr. Speaker, it is, I've got to say, and has been over the last 3 weeks or so, the gift that keeps on giving. It's a sort of soap opera playing out on TV every night, a cross between Blacklist and House of Cards set in Wellington. So of those wannabe leaders, first out of the blocks, of course, was Grant Robertson. Freshly minted, may I say, in the pages of the Woman's Weekly with his loyal, a word not often used in the Labor Party, Deputy Leader Jacinda Ardern. The next contestant, of course, is Andrew Little, a man who single-handedly managed to turn the marginal seat of New Plymouth into a national stronghold, now brilliantly represented by Jonathan Young. Of course, there is David Parker, who apparently has worked out, in some sort of epiphany, that no one likes their policies. Well, hello, I could have told him that 6 years ago, Mr. Speaker, but he's come up with a brilliant idea. He's going to copy Colin Craig. And I kid you not, he is going to have a referendum. It'll go like this. Do you want to pay more taxes? No, I don't think so. Do you want to pay more for your electricity? I don't think so. Do you want to lose your job? I don't think so. Do you want to lose your inheritance? I definitely don't think so. Well, Mr. Speaker, do you want all of the above? And the final contestant they have, of course, is Nanaia Mahuta, who, let's be blunt, the affiliates won't vote for her, the party won't vote for her, and the caucus won't vote for her. So sadly, the batch of wannabe leaders is not the future leader of the Labor Party, and we know that. It is the next batch, because do not fret, there is another batch sitting behind them. There is David Shearer, who was white-entered by David Cunliffe. Okay. There was Phil Goff, who was also white-entered by David Cunliffe, and there was David Cunliffe, who was white-entered by everyone other than David Cunliffe. But my favourite, the dark horse of all of them, and let's be honest, it's spoken quietly in circles around the Labour Party, is Stuart Nash. Stuart Nash, and you'll know when the leadership bid is on, because I thought it was actually on from David Clark yesterday with that jacket, very nice, but no, you'll know when it's on for Stuart Nash when you go on to Trade Me and you see one thing, and that is when he stops riding around in his fire engine and replaces it with an ambulance, which he knows he needs to take to the Labour Party caucus, Mr Speaker, because it is a train wreck going on over there. Now, Mr Speaker, this is a government very, very firmly focused on the issues that matter to New Zealanders. That is why this government was re-elected for a third time, because it was a government that brought to the people of New Zealand credible, sound policies that are working and delivering for the people of New Zealand. They start, Mr Speaker, with the economy. This is a government that will return the books to surplus, and this is a government that will continue, Mr Speaker, to work hard to meet the Crown objective of getting debt down to 20% of GDP by 2020. Mr Speaker, this is a government that will ensure that we spend taxpayers' money wisely, because we know how hard they work for those taxpayer dollars. But Mr Speaker, it is a government that in 2015 and 2016 will reduce ACC levies for New Zealanders so that they can have their money returned to them. Mr Speaker, this is an economy that is growing strongly at 3.9% to June, created 83,000 jobs in the last 12 months, an economy where wages are rising faster than inflation, an economy, Mr Speaker, that is the envy of so many countries around the world and is underpinned by good, solid economic policy. It has a business growth agenda with 350 odd initiatives which are transforming our economy into a modern, outward-facing, competitive economy that's not only competing but succeeding on the world stage. Mr Speaker, part of that integration with the world comes with our free trade agreements. And this is a government that's working hard to finalise a free trade agreement with Korea, and one that will work hard to see a conclusion to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's also a government that will work hard to get the Gulf States Agreement over the line. As part of working hard with New Zealand businesses, Mr Speaker, we will continue to expand the activities of NZTE so that our companies, large and small, can have access to the international markets and the huge consumer base that is supporting that. Mr Speaker, if you want to have an economy that delivers results and opportunities for all New Zealanders, you need flexibility in the labour markets. This is a government that will pass the employment relations legislation to increase flexibility and fairness in the labour markets, Mr Speaker, and it's long overdue. Mr Speaker, well, that's exactly right. Andrew Little, the man who wants to lead the Labour Party, wants to rob young New Zealanders of opportunities by taking away the 90-day probation period, by having national awards, by jacking up the minimum wage to a rate that's unaffordable. It is a step backwards, Mr Speaker, not forward for the young people of New Zealand. Mr Speaker, we will continue as a government to work hard in the area of health and safety in the environment, and we will make sure that parents have more time to spend with their youngsters by extending paid parental leave from 14 weeks to 18 weeks, and by increasing the parental tax credit for families that don't get the paid parental leave. Mr Speaker, across the country, we see businesses doing better. We see businesses strongly investing, and we'll continue to fund more in the way of science and innovation and R&D grants. We'll be establishing a food and safety science and research centre, as well as 4 additional centres of research excellence. Mr Speaker, one of the saddest things that I had to confront on the election campaign was the rhetoric from David Cunliffe trying to tell New Zealanders this was a country that only sold milk powder and logs. It was a complete disservice to those companies right across New Zealand that are innovating in so many different facets and who are proud to be New Zealanders and taking their great businesses to the world, and we'll continue to grow more of them. And speaking of taking New Zealand to the world, what we are going to take to the world, or at least to Australia, is job fairs, Mr. Speaker, in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane, just in case there are a few New Zealanders that deserted ship under the previous Labor government and haven't recognised how strong it is under a national-led government and want to come back. I say to them with open arms, come home. Come home to New Zealand. Come home to New Zealand. There's a shortage of skills in so many areas, and we'd like to have those New Zealanders return. Mr. Speaker, I am the Minister of Tourism. I'm proud to see tourism continuing to grow here in New Zealand. 2.8 million international visitors came to our shores for the year ending 2014, an increase of 4.9%. We are seeing an increase in a range of different areas, from business to high-end, those who come for sporting interests, those who come for cultural experiences. We're seeing a significant increase, 30-odd% year on year from China, Mr. Speaker. And by the end of the term, of this third term of this national-led government, Mr. Speaker, I'm pretty confident that we'll see those international business tourists going off to the Sky City Convention Centre, paid for not by the taxpayer, creating thousands of jobs and millions of opportunities for New Zealanders, Mr. Speaker. And just like the Christchurch Convention Centre, that will also be a piece of infrastructure that's taking place. Mr. Speaker, this is a government that one day will be remembered for infrastructure, for building infrastructure in so many different forms, and one of them is certainly roading. Unlike so many political parties that don't seem to understand that you need to move both cars and public transport on roads, we do. And this will be a government under the leadership of Simon Bridges as Minister of Transport that will continue to see important roads built in this country, Mr. Speaker. The Puhoi to Wellsford Road will start to see the construction on Puhoi to Warkworth. And Mr. Speaker, I didn't see a single Labor member during the election campaign get up and say they were going to be the ones to stop Transmission Gully. They didn't want to say that. They were silent like little lamb chops on that particular issue. But don't worry, the people of Wellington out of the hut understood that, and they voted national. And yes, Transmission Gully will be beginning, as will be the completion of the Mackay's to Peka Peka, Mr. Speaker. The Waikato Expressway will see a completion of the Cambridge bypass, and we'll start to see the construction on the Huntly and Hamilton bypass. Mr. Speaker, when I first kicked off in 2008, the ambitious plans we had for the Waikato Expressway, I could only dream that I would be there when it finished. But the way things are going, Mr. Speaker, I may well be, and it may well be extended all the way through to Whangarei and maybe even Cape Reinga. I don't really know. But it'll be 4 lanes each way, I'm absolutely sure by that point, Mr. Speaker. And of course there's that regional roading projects that I announced. So many of those will be happening. And the $100 million for urban cycleways, Mr. Speaker. We'll be working hard with the Transport Authority to make sure there's more money spent on urban cycleways and doing well there. Mr. Speaker, connectivity is important to a small and growing economy. Whether you're bringing educational services or health services or business to the world, I'm proud to be leading a government that had the courage to stand up and roll out ultra-fast broadband. And I was proud to be the leader of the National Party as we campaigned across the country to extend ultra-fast broadband to 80% of New Zealanders, Mr. Speaker, and to extend the Rural Broadband Initiative. And that extension of UFB will see towns like Te Puke and Motueka, Morrinsville, Kaitaia, Otaki, Dannevirke, Alexandra, Stratford, Carterton, Westport, Tikawiti and Wairoa all getting ultra-fast broadband, Mr. Speaker. And we will see more money spent on black spots for phones, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the environment, Mr. Speaker, this government has a good record in the environment. But yes, we will, Mr. Speaker, be introducing legislation to amend the RMA. And I just heard, I think, Annette King, the acting leader of the Labor Party, saying, well, the acting deputy leader, I'm sorry, yes, I stand corrected. The acting deputy leader of the Labor Party saying in her her extended tenure address that she would stand opposed to reform of the RMA. That's the reason why house prices doubled under Labor. So they can scream from their lungs when they go out there, as they did during the campaign trail. Not a single New Zealander watching TV really believed that they were going to produce 100,000 homes on mythical bits of land for unbelievable amounts of money built by the government. No one believed it, Mr. Speaker. But if you want houses to be built faster, as we all do, reform of the RMA is critically important. We need to balance our environmental responsibilities with our economic opportunities. And Mr. Speaker, this is a government with a good record when it comes to the environment. $350 million committed to cleaning up iconic waterways. We've seen 23,000 kilometres of waterways have been fenced to exclude stocks so far, and we'll see all of that completed by 2017. And again, on the campaign trail, I was proud to announce the $100 million that we're going to invest to buy and retire areas of selected farmland next to important waterways. And Mr. Speaker, my particular favourite actually in this area came on one Sunday afternoon when I had the privilege of going down in Auckland to the harbour to announce that we would be establishing recreational fishing parks in the Hauraki Gulf, and I heard Winston Peters cheering all the way from Herne Bay when I announced that. He's a man who loves to catch a snapper. He loves to catch a snapper. And he said to himself, that John Key, I tell you, I don't agree with everything, but Johnny Boy's onto it there. I'm going to catch a few snapper. And now, in fairness, he didn't know he's going to have quite so much time on his hands between 2014 and 2017 to catch a snapper, but he will. And if he wants to go down south, he can go to the Marlborough Sounds as well, because there'll be a recreational fishing park as well. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to health, this is a government spending more money on health than ever in the history of this country. But it's not just about spending money, it's about getting good results. We've got great results. And again, one of the things we announced on the campaign trail is what we're doing for New Zealanders who are diagnosed with cancer. I think there is not a New Zealand family that hasn't been touched by someone who's passed away from cancer, Mr. Speaker. At the moment, the average point from diagnosis of the doctor to the first treatment is 62 days. Under this government, we're going to work hard to make sure that 90% of patients receive their first cancer treatment within 62 days, Mr. Speaker, and that's something that New Zealand families will welcome. And we are going to extend free GP visits and prescriptions to children under the age of 13, Mr. Speaker. We're also going to continue to expand the number of elective surgical operations that are undertaken, Mr. Speaker. And the last point I'd make is we're going to continue to increase the funding for hospice by $20 million a year. Mr. Speaker, we hear a lot of nonsense spoken in this House by opposition parties. And one of the things that I'm sure we'll hear a lot of over the course of the next few months is when they stand up and say that they don't support professional development of our teachers. You know, they will not say for one moment that a good teacher should actually get paid more to stay in the classroom than to go through the only career path they can, which is to leave the classroom to get more money, Mr. Speaker. They will not support more money going to those change principals who will leave a high-performing school and take their skills to a low-performing school. And if those members of Parliament believe that they want New Zealand to be a true egalitarian society, then they've got to stop the nonsense of stopping what is the current situation of great principals not transferring to those schools. We have to deliver change in our education system, Mr. Speaker, and we will. And this is a government that will stand up for those families who have a child with special needs by funding up to 800,000 more teacher aid hours, Mr. Speaker, at $18 million a year. There'll be more funding to support deaf and hearing impaired children. There'll be more money spent on Maori and Pacific trades training. There'll be more money spent on training our engineers. There'll be more money spent on new schools and classrooms right across our country, particularly in Christchurch and Auckland, Mr. Speaker. Fantastic. When it comes to welfare reform, I want to acknowledge the achievements of the previous Minister of Social Development, Paula Bennett, and say that we've now got to a situation where I think the settings in our welfare system are set in broadly the right place, and we're seeing tremendous results. Benefit numbers are falling. We now have the lowest number of sole parents on a benefit in this country since 1988. The lowest number since 1988. We have 30,000 fewer children living in benefit-dependent households compared to 2 years ago. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things that worked tremendously over the last 3 years was when we extended the youth service approach to 16, 17 and 18-year-old mothers. We put a wraparound service around those young mums. We made sure there was someone to walk that journey with them. We made sure that they were enrolled in education, that they had support for budgeting, that they had advice about parenting. There was incentive payments made to those young mums. And do you know what happened as a result of that? We've seen a 40% reduction of young mums who are now on that extended youth service approach, a 40% reduction. And this is the single approach that came out of that, a plea by those young mums for us to extend that program into 19-year-olds, and that's exactly what we're doing. I remember, Mr. Speaker, when we got up and talked about having the 3K for Christchurch, giving people $3,000 to move to Christchurch if they came off a welfare benefit. That has been an overwhelming success, and it may well be something that we try in other parts. And when it comes to children who live in poverty, I say this, Mr. Speaker, we're deadly serious about continuing our work there, but the fastest way out of poverty is into work. Make no mistakes, the fastest way out of poverty is into work. And yes, we'll spend some time defining the group that we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, but that has been the problem of the Labor Party of the past. Far too much time spent on definitions, not enough time spent on actually doing something. This government is going to get out there and continue to work hard for those who are the most vulnerable and most at risk in our community. When it comes to housing, Mr. Speaker, that is an issue that worries New Zealanders, and I accept that issue, but that has been a very long-standing issue in our major cities for quite some time, particularly Auckland. But it's this government that's had the courage to actually stand up and have the special housing areas. 80 of those special housing areas, Mr. Speaker, 80 of those, there will be thousands and thousands and thousands of homes established on those special housing areas. And young New Zealanders will get the chance to get into those homes, Mr. Speaker, through their Home Start program, where a couple who put their money into their KiwiSaver account will be able to withdraw their employer contribution, their own contribution, the government's contribution. They'll have up to $50,000 as a deposit, which will be wrapped around with a welcome home loan. Will present more than enough for them to buy a house. In many locations, including Auckland, I believe, around the country, we will see builders starting to build for that demand that's there. Speaker, we will be looking to extend the social housing area, and there will be some changes in the mix of ownership between Housing New Zealand homes and social housing that is provided by other providers like Presbyterian Support and others. And that is a very credible policy that's working extremely well in a place like Australia. And I say this to those that will oppose it, like the Labor Party, because we've already heard it in the Deputy Leader's speech, and that is, what do those people want? Do they actually want a house, or do they want to know whether it's owned by Presbyterian Support or the government? It's pretty simple. They want a home. And this will be a government that will be working hard through the work we've already done around income-related rents to ensure that more at-risk families do get the opportunity to live in a home, Mr. Speaker. And we will be working hard to make sure that the interest rates remain low, that we challenge all the areas of the building and construction area. But one of those important parts of ensuring that housing affordability is under control is to reform the Resource Management Act and make sure we deliver those houses. Mr. Speaker, law and order is an issue that matters to a great many New Zealanders, and with very good reason. I'm proud to lead a government that's got a crime rate at a 35-year low, and that has been a lot of hard work from a huge number of ministers in our caucus and those who work in the sector. And again, this has been a government that has recognised what those most drivers of crime are. Whether it's been drug or alcohol abuse, this has been a government that's made sure that those prisoners that go into a corrections facility do get access to a drug and alcohol program. This is a government that's turned 3 of our prisons into a working prison, and again during the campaign trail I had the opportunity to go out to the Wirri prison to see that public-private partnership in action and see the magnificent facilities they're building out there, a huge big trades training facility being built out there. We will make sure that every prison is a working prison, because we know that when a prisoner gets the drug and alcohol treatment, when they get the skills, then there's a much lower chance that they will be recidivist and go back to prison. We know there's a great chance that they'll turn their lives around and make something of their lives by ensuring that they stay in the workforce and not in prison. So, Mr. Speaker, that is going to be part of what we'll do around law and order. When it comes to Maori development, Mr. Speaker, I look to my left and see Mr. Finlayson, who, as I've said on numerous occasions, will go down in history as the greatest treaty negotiations minister in the history of New Zealand. He has undertaken more claims. He has signed up 46 deeds of settlement. The Labor government managed 25 in their entire 9 years. If the Labor government had still carried on at that rate, it would have taken to 2060 to see them have completed those claims. Mr. Speaker, the other great work that Chris Finlayson is undertaking is in relation to the Tui Whenua Māori Act, where we'll see an opportunity to unlock some of that land that can be used for the development of the iwi, for job development, for the enrichment of the communities. 80% of the 1.5 million hectares is in that position, Mr. Speaker. We will see more young Māori getting opportunities, as we're already seeing more achieving within CEA Level 2 and bachelor's degrees and above, and we will see a continued commitment to whānau ora. Speaker, I just want to finish, if I may, briefly on a couple of issues. The first is in relation to the UN Security Council and the obligations that New Zealand has in 2015-16 to discharge its responsibilities wisely. We'll be doing that. I congratulate, as I already have, the team that made that possible. But, Mr. Speaker, the second big issue that is worthy of some discussion is what's happening in Iraq and Syria at the moment in relation to ISIS. We can turn our eyes away from that situation if we want to, but I tell New Zealanders with great honesty that we face international risks, we face regional risks, and there's a very real risk that we may one day face a domestic risk. We have to play our part in some form. We have not made a decision what that part might be like. There is a very wide range. We'll continue to engage with the other political parties, including the Labor Party, and we're more than happy to share as much information as we practically can when we have it. There is a wide range of options available to New Zealand, but I really believe when the opposition parties have the benefit of understanding all of the information that the government understands, I'll be absolutely amazed if they actually stand back and say that we are going to leave all of that to not just our traditional friends like Australia and the United States and the United Kingdom and Canada, but to so many other countries, whether they be places like Netherlands or others, France or Germany. New Zealand has to play its part, Mr. Speaker, but it needs to think through that very wisely. Finally, Mr. Speaker, over the course of the next few years, there will be an opportunity for the New Zealand public to decide on whether they want to change the flag. I personally believe that the flag is a visual representation of, or should be a visual representation of modern New Zealand. I believe that if New Zealanders choose wisely and decide to change their flag, it will be like Canada the week after they changed their flag from what was a flag that used to look a lot like the New Zealand flag except was red. They changed it to the maple leaf. I think you'll struggle to find a Canadian who seriously wants to go back to the old flag. Mr. Speaker, young New Zealanders with pride, like all New Zealanders actually, want to have overt signs of patriotism for this great country. We do that when we put on a piece of clothing that has a silver fern on it. I'm pretty indifferent different about the background that silver fern might have, but I do think New Zealanders should think wisely and carefully about it. If that debate is not won over the next few years, then it'll be a good 50 years or so before it's decided again. This debate's been going around for 25 years, Mr Speaker. I want to achieve something that the Right Honourable Gough Whitlam couldn't, and that's to change our flag. I hope New Zealanders will support that view. We are a national government working very hard for New Zealand. There's a very big agenda over the next 3 years, but we're a government that's working for New Zealand while we face an opposition that's in disarray.
Materia Ture.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou e te whare. The other day I had